So my name's Jen. Like we were just mentioning, have a PhD. It's in French. Long story short, I got into tech about 25 years ago, and here I am giving talks about saris. How many people know about what a sari is? Okay, that's good, because what I wanted to mention is saris, and I'm going to talk extensively about what these are and what this is all about. But these are the draped garments that ladies in India wear. They can vary a lot in style, in design, and in the way they're draped. Actually, when I gave this talk in Gujarat, you put the back drape in front. Looks completely different, but that's a Gujarat style drape. So if you are sophisticated enough to know that, you are money ahead. So I'm also the former head of academic advocacy at AWS. Before that, I was at Microsoft, and before that, I was at a lot of other places that were very interesting. I am fun employed right now, so if you're looking for someone who's really interested in talking about your software or helping developers get educated on your platform, I am your gal. Anyway, so yes, this talk was given as a TEDx talk in Chatusat in the middle of nowhere in Gujarat, India. It was a university and a very interesting experience, but it was triggered by this little headline that I stumbled on as I was doing research around textiles. I'm a big textile nerd. I love textiles. I think Mariko, who's a knitter, would understand what I'm talking about. Is the era of sari draping silently coming to an end? That's the kind of clickbait title that caught my attention as well. And this is something that people are thinking about. Are we going to bother to take all this time to get wrapped up in these extraordinary outfits and show our culture, celebrate our culture with the garments that we have wrapped around us? Because they take time. But these kind of garments, and I'm going to talk about clothes a lot in this talk, but this is a cultural heritage, an aspect of people's cultural heritage that goes way back. In the case of India, it goes back something like several thousand years. The first example of a draped garment, sari-style draped garment, is from this stone figurine, which is from 200 to 100 BCE, before Common Era. It's from Bengal, and it shows this kind of draping. People have been doing this for quite a long time. But in today's agenda, I'd like to just talk about, using sari draping, using textiles, using these culturally important garments and textiles as a metaphor, right? We want to talk about moving from appropriation, cultural appropriation, to appreciation, and then from comprehension to conservation, using tech. That's where we come in. So this is all about, cool things that I'm interested in, but always connected to the tech, because that's what we're here for. And I have a little demo of an app that I built to help us on these topics. What's at stake? What's at stake? This is at stake, right? This is a lovely model draped in her beautiful sari. She's perfectly posed in front of this blue door that kind of draws your eye towards the colors. The tiles of the floor match some of the palu in the back. The palu is the draped piece in back. And all of the elements just come together in this beautifully executed pose. Versus Zendaya over here. So I think this is dreadful, but some people actually liked this garment. I think it's a wild aspect of cultural appropriation, because what's happening is that she was styled in this way that sort of takes away from the conservative appeal, the very beautiful aspect of showing the fabric and, wrapping yourself in the layers of fabric. Here, this is sort of like a synthetic with a couple spangles on it. It's designed to reveal rather than to conceal. And it looks improper to a lot of people. She was roasted pretty good for this garment. This was at the famous Adani wedding that happened in India with lots of fancy people there. But I think that, we need to be careful, right? We need to be careful when talking about these elements. And we need to think about, how, like I said, we can move from that element, that aspect of cultural appropriation, to really appreciate and comprehend what we're doing with ourselves, what we're doing with the, adopting cultural practices and celebrating cultural practices in an AI era. In an era where we're all surrounded by AI, which is changing every aspect of this game. So I really like to follow Natasha Thassan. I believe she is from Sri Lanka. She's a TikToker. for as long as we've got it, we can enjoy Natasha on one of these platforms. And she can show you how to wrap up a sari, which takes a considerable amount of time and effort. She can do it in 1 minute flat for TikTok. It's amazing. She does a great job. And I was excited to see that 7.4 million people watched this video. Isn't that cool? So people are really excited about watching her, wrap herself up and show how to use these garments on an everyday basis on an AI-driven platform such as TikTok. That's really interesting to me. So we're moving into the modern era, but with elements of culture that are thousands of years old. I love that. So let's talk about textiles. Textiles are important. Side note, I didn't want to wear the sari that I normally would wear for this talk because, like I said, it's really complicated to get into and you need some help. I had a lot of faculty in India constantly helping wrap up, pin, 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 wrap up, style, pleat, pin it again, and then hope for the best because when you raise your arm and something flies off, God forbid. But instead, I wore my outfit from Romania. So this was picked up for me by my husband in Romania. And these garments have an interesting symbolism. If you notice that these kind of traditional blouses, they have 3 elements. And these symbolize sky, earth, and sea. So you're wrapping yourself with these garments in an aspect of kind of earth symbolism, and I love that. It's really cool. Let's talk about the textile's story. Here we've got, the Romanian outfit. Ukrainians have, most Eastern Europeans have this kind of peasant blouse, this kind of thing, all with lots of symbolism embroidered in. But I like to talk about blue jeans, right? So I'm mixing metaphors here. I've got my jeans as a skirt. Let's talk about blue jeans. Lots of blue jeans here. We should celebrate blue jeans because you know what? It's the ultimate American outfit, right? It's the ultimate American pants. But is it? But is it? Let's find out. Here we have James Dean looking too cool for school with his cigarette and his rolled, in the 50s, they rolled him up real high. Kind of fun. And then these are workers here, probably loggers, obviously loggers, and they have their work pants on. But let's talk about the international story of blue jeans. Holy cow, it's way complicated. I was really amazed when I started digging into the archaic history of blue jeans, because what we have here is we have evidence that in 6,000 years ago in Peru, people are cultivating blue indigo to dye these garments, or to dye any kind of garments. So we've got indigo cultivation. And then we have, in the 17th century, sailors traveling around the world wearing pants, really kind of rough and tough, very useful, hardy pants, which are called dungarees, which is from the Indian word dungri, which is a type of indigo-dyed cotton worn by sailors. And the minute you have sailors wearing something, they're going to go around the world and they're going to spread these fashions and these outfits all over the place. It's fascinating. Such that in the 17th century, we suddenly find evidence that a new kind of textile is being created in Nîmes, in France. It's a port city in France. And it's called Serge de Nîmes. That's where the word denim comes to us into the English language, because it's de Nîmes, it's from Nîmes. So here we have, and the denim, if you look at your pants, you notice that it's a white and a blue. And the warp and the weft are different colors. That's the feature of denim pants, of denim cloth. Into the 19th century we go. We have cotton being cultivated all over the southern part of the US in slave-worked plantations, with the very dark history that we have in this country, so that we can always remember as we put on our denim pants that we're also putting on an aspect of that culture. And there's a very good documentary called, I think it's called The History of Jeans or something like that by PBS. That's very interesting to watch about that history. And then in the 1850s, this kind of cloth, these pants, and this fashion comes to the workers in the mines during the gold rush in California. And that's when Levi Strauss patented rivets. These rivets, these are the patented rivets that were created by Levi Strauss to make these jeans really, really, really tough and unable to rip when you lean down, unless you ate too much lunch. But what all of this timeline, which is very esoteric and random, what I'm trying to show is that this, the textiles that we wrap ourselves with have a world of culture surrounding them. And all of this culture finds its way into the garments that you put around your body every day. Wouldn't it be cool? Wouldn't it be cool if we could use technology to tell this story? To tell the story of all the interconnected aspects of textile creation and textile management and fashions that go around the world. Well, it was really nice that at Microsoft I was able to do this, and I was able to work with Cooper Hewitt Museum, and we created a kind of a cultural app for museums, so that when you had a piece in your collection, you could then create the stories around it through nodes, and it was like the history of the provenance, who donated the object, what they were doing, where they were, why they were interested in this, why they were collecting these items. And then the actual object itself, like an antimacassar, which is a kind of a textile you put on the back of an armchair back in the Victorian era to protect it from macassar oil. Well, where's that macassar oil coming from? So you can go, you can go into these huge rabbit holes, and we made technology to do that digitally. To do that, you need to digitize your assets. And this is one of the major pushes for museums and collection management in this day and age. We're trying to make sure that all of the things that we have around us are digitized and put into some kind of database. And then we are creating APIs. This is really simple tech. This is not literally rocket science, right? We're creating APIs so that we can access these photos and these images. And then we're starting to apply more interesting technology, more complicated technology, like OCR and AI and ML, to really tell the story of these aspects of our culture. So there's a whole field surrounding this. It's called DAMS, Digital Asset Management. And it's really all about collections management. You're building like a cross-departmental catalog at the Metropolitan Museum. Well, they have an API you can hit right now where they've done this, and you're able to, take your vase in the Chinese porcelain collection and connect it to the paper scrolls in the other part of the Chinese collection, and really create a database that can show the nodes. Just create a straight up relational database talking about the department, the donation, and the provenance. So that is the most basic aspect of collections management. But what if you used this more interesting technology like OCR, for example? OCR, we have optical character recognition for collections management, and we have, this is a museum which has a collection of botanical specimens, which is always kind of weird. You go in, like the Harvard museums have a lot of botanical specimens, but they're usually written with some kind of text or handwriting or some kind of little card that shows where it came from. And they're digitizing it using OCR. So they're using readers to figure out where all the stuff is, get all that data, put it in some kind of relational database so that we can get a digitized collection of our items. Well, I decided to try to use more interesting technologies such as OCR, but in my case it was computer vision, right? I was using computer vision to create an app that would allow me to take a picture of a sari, for example, when I'm wandering around India, and see where it's from, because every region has its style, and maybe something else interesting. Maybe within a region they have several different styles, so maybe I can kind of pinpoint it in that way as well. So what I did is I had a really amazing Sunday afternoon, and I combed the internet for all the images that I could find, and I put them in folders in a nice S3 bucket. Yay, AWS S3. Stuck it in the bucket, and I created the little categories. So we have Banasari, which is a style of sari, batik saris, chikan, eri saris, and put them all in their folders. And then I trained a model against it. So all you have to do is point Rekognition, AWS Amazon Rekognition, at these folders and just start training your model. It's actually pretty easy and clean. I'm not going to say it's cheap, but it's easy and clean. And I ended up creating this app. So we have several saris here of different styles. Detect the labels. So and it was actually shockingly accurate. It's a Gujarat sari. This is obviously from Gujarat. It has that tie-dye aspect. And it was able to identify that it's a Bandhani sari from Gujarat. How about this one? This is my very favorite, actually. Also from Gujarat. You can see the bias here. This is a talk for Gujarat. So also from Gujarat, and it's a patola sari. Patola is the most interesting. It's almost like pixel art. They tie-dye the whole thing on the warp and the weft, and it all fits together beautifully. This is a Banarasi style sari. It's a silk, different look, different feel, from Uttar Pradesh, which is a region. If you're Indian, you instantly know what this is. White and gold means Kerala, and it's a Kasavu style. So that's the most recognizable in my opinion. And then this last one, you can detect the labels. And it's a Paithani style from Maharashtra. So I was actually surprised that just by, my 130 something images that I stuck into those buckets, that I could do a little training on top of a model and get some reasonable results. So here, and here's a Gujarat style, by the way. The palu is in front. So here we have this lady, and it is another patola sari from Gujarat. So not bad, not bad. Some pretty decent results. And that is kind of an example of how you could maybe categorize an entire collection of your saris, which sadly at this point I have a collection of saris because every time I would go to a place, the word got out that I'm a fanatic of their textiles, and they would start giving me gifts, which is amazing. But I want to kind of get away from the woohoo, yeah, whoop-de-doo, and talk about some of the upsides and the downsides of working in collections management, working with cultural heritage within this interesting AI era that we are in, like it or not. Now, I'm a literature nerd, as you know. I'm a culture vulture, and AI makes me nervous a little bit. I find that sometimes it can be disconnected from the source. A lot of these things are scraping, like Midjourney, just scraping all the information. You have no idea, in general, on what data it was trained. We don't know where those images came from, who owns the images, whether they're copyright or not. Attribution is erased. As a literature teacher, I want those footnotes. I want to see them where I can see them. And the results can be sometimes a little superficial. This is a vivid Gujarat image from Midjourney. It's vivid, that's true. But it's a little superficial. It's just like bright colors. Obviously, Gujarat for them meant bright colors, so they did that. However, and I must admit that in this AI era, we're in an era of kind of a democratized aspect of culture. Anyone can be a creator, right? Anyone with internet access can use. That's great, because maybe, in the off the beaten path in Gujarat, maybe someone can train something on the Gujarat language. They have their own language. And this came up when I was there. Maybe they can, do some research and create better AI because more people are participating in it. So this was one of the major things I wanted to mention. But let's talk about artisan textiles. This is an artisan textile. This is all hand done, and the price reflects the aspect that it's all hand done. I visited the factories that make this exact kind of patola textile. There's 1,000 years tradition behind these. We can't improve it. This is one thing I think we need to understand, that it's not going to get any better than it already is. But it's so esoteric that people are not going to appreciate it unless we raise awareness about the amazing history that has gone into these textiles for thousands and thousands of years. Textiles are always under threat of mechanization. The Luddites were the weavers, right? And they were bashing the mechanized looms. So, there's always this tension between the artisans and the people who are working in the fields, and it somehow always centers around textiles. So this is kind of a fulcrum. So if we decide we're not going to improve it, but we can educate people about it, we can raise awareness, and we can get people excited about these elements of culture. I created a little app. AWS has an interesting platform called Party Rock, in case you haven't tried it, and it'll create an app if you put in a prompt. Very cool. Looks like this. It's free, which is also nice. You can try this. The one I created is called Silk Weave. And what you do is you put in motifs that you want in your custom sari. You say, I want rabbits and clouds and shamrocks or whatever. I want the style, the region to be a Gujarat style, and then some other aspects of the sari that you want, and it will generate an image like this. So here's the prompt. I said I want a kantha work sari. Kantha is kind of embroidery. I want big floral embroidery on it, so it created this for me. And then I said I want a sari from Madras, south of India, and I want vines stylized. I didn't do so well on this one, which tells you that there are gaps in this training data, right? But not terrible. And then I said, hey, I want a Gujarat style sari material generated, and I want gold embroidered clouds, because it's going to be a cloud sari, like cloud. And I wanted, I wanted them in a sort of a border, and on the pallu, I wanted a very specific style. And this is what it created, and I don't hate it. I don't hate it. So I took this image and asked people in India to create it for me, and $300 later, the world's first AI sari. So that's what it ended up looking like. That was really fun. And I got to wear that all over the place. But it's one thing to just generate a sari with some stylized images. What if you want to educate people on the inherent symbolism? And here we go back to the symbolism of artisan textiles. There's always something woven in. There's always inherent meaning. If you were going to spend upwards of $1,000 or $2,000 on your wedding sari, because they're really expensive, because they're gorgeous, you're going to put some great motifs that mean something in that to you, right? So people would say, okay, I want flower bunches, I want trellis motif, because that means certain meanings to me. There's hunting scenes in the border, that kind of thing. And so I started asking generative AI if they could create me a meaningful element, a meaningful textile design. So I asked it to create me something that would draw on Banarasi motifs, symbolizing good luck, fertility, prosperity, via the symbols in the background and the pallu. And it created kind of random stuff. It didn't really know what I was talking about. That led me to see whether I could make this generative AI just a little bit smarter, which is a dangerous word to use when we're talking about AI, but it's a little bit more informed. And the way to make it a little more informed is to use knowledge bases, which in AWS we call these things knowledge bases. You're connecting your LLM to vetted sources. I love vetted sources. Thank you. Knock off the hallucinations, and let's connect it to a website that explains Banarasi motifs, and can generate me a better prompt. So I was able to do that, connecting to a couple of good websites that I trusted, and I said, using this knowledge base, generate me a prompt that will generate me an image of that I'm looking for to really give me the solid, meaningful design that I'm looking for. So this one also gives you your sources, which is very helpful. I like that. I like those footnotes. And once the prompt gets better, the image gets a little bit better. So here I have this meaningful sari design being generated, symbolizing prosperity and good luck and fertility, using the leaves, the paisley motif, the gold, silver and gold zari work, and the floral jal, which is that trellis. So not too bad. And I think there's bulbul birds, just little birds in the border. So in conclusion, I want you to zoom in. I really want you to, go ahead and jump into these new technologies. And you can tell this is for a student audience, right? Go ahead, try it, give it a try. But make sure that, you're using this new technology to look deeper, to help yourself look deeper, and to generate these meaningful assets, generate meaning by drawing on the great cultural heritage that everyone is inheriting. And then maybe by using these technologies to make ourselves better informed, then maybe we can help conserve these traditions. And that would be really the ultimate goal. So we have these generative AI ladies, which actually their hands are not too bad. They're kind of hidden, which is usually, you can tell when they're generated because they have 6 fingers. But here we have a reasonably generated group of ladies done in Midjourney. This is the money shot. This is the way the sari looked. Uh, and it was really a very special experience to work at AWS, which allowed me to travel twice last year to India and romp around in local outfits and just enjoy myself and talk about how we can really conserve our cultural heritage maybe a little bit with some of these new and really amazing technologies that we have at our fingertips now. Please stay in touch. We'd love to hear from you. Anybody looking for work, for people to educate about your developer platforms or about your tooling, I'm your gal, like I said at the beginning, and I think this will give you a link to how to contact me. So thank you so much.